Hello and welcome to episode 2 of The Goal is AFL with me, Harry, and here we have Caleb right up here. How are you going, mate? Thank you so much for joining us. We are about a week and a half until the first game of the season. We have opening round. I might ask you how you feel about opening round. I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of opening round, so to speak, but we're going to be doing a few different things today. We're going to be talking about who we think are going to be the Coleman medalist, the Brownlow medalist, the Rising Star, and a couple of disappointments and surprises of the season. And I think both of us have gone with disappointing and surprising teams, but we might talk about some players that we think might rise or fall and just have a general chat kind of as we lead into the AFL season. So first of all, how are you doing, mate? How is your day going, recovering from the weekend?
Yeah, good.
Good.
As always, it's a pleasure to talk footy. In terms of opening round, I'm not quite sure the logic behind it. I think it was tried to sort of get more acknowledgement in the states that aren't Victoria, and trying to build the audience and the exposure in those areas. But I don't know, why can't we just start the competition with round one with everyone else? It just seems a bit weird. Yeah. But in terms of what we're going to be discussing specifically today, in terms of who's going to be the major standouts individually and as a team. It's going to be an interesting conversation, and I'm very much so looking forward to the end of the season when we can reflect on these predictions and see what we got right and what we got wrong. So, I reckon we just get straight into it.
I think that's a good metric of what the season was. You know, like the standout performers that really give you a bit of a sense of how the season panned out. And we can see, as you said, towards the end of the year when we look back on these and look back on our previous episode where we talked about the ladder. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. We basically ran through top to bottom about who we think is going to finish where. And obviously we'll go back and we'll kind of revisit and be like, well, that didn't really work out. Some of them may have worked out and we might look incredibly smart, which is very rare for me. So
I'm bloody hoping so. Yeah. I'd said Essendon would finish in the 8, so I bloody hope I'm right.
Yep.
So we'll look very silly.
So go check that one out.
I have a feeling.
We'll go check that one out, and we're going to start with our number one, which is right up in the top left, as you can see. Caleb, who is going to be your Coleman medal winner?
Well, in my opinion, I think the Geelong Cats are going to have a very formidable season, and their main man up top is Jeremy Cameron. And I think he is going to be the main goal threat in the competition this season. Obviously, the Cats have an addition in midfield with Bailey Smith, and I think that's going to give them a lot more energy penetrating into those forward positions. And the fact that Tom Hawkins has also retired, I think, is going to mean he's going to have to take on added responsibility as the main tall in their forward line. And he did quite well last season. He finished second in the Coleman medal ladder, just behind Jesse Hogan from GWS. And I think throughout his career, he's been one of the most consistent and reliable forwards in the game. And I think coming into 2025, he is going to win that Coleman medal.
Nice, very good pick. Obviously, himself going from GWS and then coming to the Cats, his career has kind of gone from strength to strength. And he got married in the off season, so he's kind of, I guess, got that sorted out. So his head should be pretty clear to be able to go and play footy, which is great to see. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the Cats are going to do. And obviously, as you said, they're going to be in top spot. I think I had them at 5th in the ladder. So I definitely can see Jeremy Cameron being right up there. For me, the top kind of going to go into, I'm going to give away a little bit of a secret, as we go along. But for me, it's Nick Larkey. I feel that North are a little bit on the rise. I feel that North are going to be obviously not great. They're not going to make the finals, in my opinion. But I just think with an award like the Coleman, it obviously does reward players who are, proven goal scorers and don't have a lot of competition for the goals. So I feel like Nick Larkey being that number one target. I think Jack Darling then also came to North Melbourne this year from West Coast, but I don't feel like he's quite as much of a threat to steal as many goals away from him. And I think with the Jai Simpkin being really good with as their captain, North being a little bit of a team on the up and coming stage here, I feel like Nick Larkey's going to get some good delivery into the forward line, and he's going to kick a lot of goals. He got pretty close a couple of years ago with Charlie Curnow pipping him, but I just feel like he has that ability. At any time he could burst up for 6, 7, 8 goals a game, and I feel like with North being better, as I said, Nick Larkey feels like to me a good pick. I think he's like number 4 or 5 in the sports bet kind of betting. I don't really know the exact odds. Charlie Curnow is number 1, which surprised me a little bit because I feel like Curnow...
Well, he's also a very, very good forward, and I'm predicting Carlton to have a good season as well.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if it's a three-way battle between these 3 guys that we're talking about.
But Curnow got a little bit injured this in the last little bit, so I don't know how many games he's going to be able to play, and obviously it's a tally award, and I feel that Curnow, if he's out for any length of time, might take him down, whereas if he was a fully fit start to the season, I might have picked him, but that injury kind of factored into my decision there. So there we go. Those are our Coleman Medal picks, Jeremy Cameron and Nick Larkey. Caleb, do you want to reveal who you think is going to win the Top Gong of the year, which is, of course, the Brownlow Medal?
Well, it does pain me to say this, unfortunately, because it is the club that I hate the most, but it is the main man from the Collingwood Football Club, Nick Dacos. He did so very well in his breakout season for the Pies. He came second in the Brownlow tally last season, losing to Carlton's Patrick Cripps. And I think this season, it's that sort of missing out and being so close, I think is going to spur him on and give him extra motivation to individually step up for his team when he's needed. And I think as a result, we're going to be hearing at the end of the year, Nick Dacos, 3 votes very often.
I feel you're right. I just also feel that Collingwood still has some really good players that might take some votes away, perhaps in the midfield. You think of his...
That's a fair call, actually.
His brother. People like Jordan De Goey and such, some of these players that are really, really good players that I feel like could take some votes. But again, he is obviously the number 1 in that midfield, and midfield is obviously always win this award. Do you think that's
actually a positive or a negative in a team overall? Because what you said then just makes a lot of sense. Because when I look at when Lachie Neale won his Brownlow medals, that he was like the biggest star of our team. He ran the midfield, was the engine, got the most touches, made the most impact. And yes, we had good players around him like Hugh McCluggage and Cam Rayner, but Lachie Neale was the star of that midfield. Whereas if you've got a team that has so many great supporting characters around you that is also stealing the spotlight, how does that affect your Brownlow tally at the end of the season? I didn't consider that, but I do believe Nick Dacos, based off how well he performed last season and the amount of disposals and amount of goal involvements he got in, I still think that even though Collingwood has a very good team and in my opinion will have a good season, I think Nick Dacos is going to win that Brownlow medal.
Fair enough. It's a bit of a... I'm hedging your bets a little bit. I'm just trying to create a bit of a discussion because I feel like I think that he is going to win it. I didn't pick him. I'll get into that in a second. I did not pick Nick Dacos, but I definitely agree that he's in with a very, very good shout. And the majority think that this is the way it's going to go with Nick Dacos. However, my pick was Mr. Zach Merritt from the Essendon Bombers. I just think that he is a proven vote getter. He's one of those guys who just jumps off the screen at you as clearly being one of the best players on the field. And I think that Merritt and the Bombers are going to have an enterprising year, let's just say. They could be incredibly mercurial and they could be flashy. And obviously this Brownlow medal, he's not a defender, so they're probably going to give up a lot of goals, but they're probably going to also score a lot of points. And that means that Zach Merritt's probably going to get a lot of touches. So I feel that those things, that attacking style of play that Essendon play, I think that Zach Merritt is primed for a huge year and probably a lot of Brownlow votes here. So any thoughts on that one there, Caleb?
It's interesting that you picked Zach Merritt because I remember in your latter prediction that you didn't anticipate Essendon being that high up. And normally when you have a team that is underperforming and not getting 4 points on the leaderboard often, that doesn't necessarily mean you have individuals in your team that are stepping up and putting in Brownlow medal worthy performances. So I think it's an interesting choice that you've gone with Merritt there. But at the end of the season, I think if he is one of those players that has gained the most headlines for his team, that, in my opinion, could be why Essendon finish up towards the top end of the table rather than the bottom end, especially if he's putting in 10 out of 10s every single week.
I just think that if you, even in the wins, I feel like he's going to be the best player on the field. And even in the losses, he might still be the best player, which then maybe give him one vote or even two votes in those losses, perhaps, which then will propel you. Because I feel like they might finish around the 10 win mark. So if you think 10 with 2 or 3 votes every time, that gives you 30 points, 30 Brownlow votes, and then add in a 5 or 6 more in a loss. I don't know. I just feel like it's just going to add up to that winning total. So that's my thought, Zach Merritt. But again, we'll see at the end of the year. I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm seeing that Caleb is going for the favourites, like the big teams, the Collingwood and the Cats, and I'm going for like the guys who I think are going to be standouts in probably lower ranked teams like Essendon and North. I just feel like that might play a big part.
Well, I'm not a betting man at all. But it does make a lot of sense to go with the favourites, doesn't it?
It does. But hey, we've got to have a bit of a discussion. So hopefully we'll have maybe we might go a little bit closer together in this one. So who is going to be your rising star of the year?
Well, he's the main kid that's coming into the new Brisbane Lions setup. He has a brother who won the Norm Smith in the grand final last year, and his name is Levi Ashcroft. His father played for the Brisbane Lions, and he has come to the club with the father-son rule. And he has been predicted by many people in the AFL punditry world as someone to definitely keep an eye out for. And assuming he stays fit in his whole first season, I think he is going to win that rising star. And just like his brother, Will Ashcroft, who made an instant impact when coming into the team, I think his brother Levi is going to do the exact same thing and get lots of headlines for the Brisbane Lions this season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that Levi Ashcroft is definitely a huge young prospect. I think that he has the same similar pedigree that his brother does, and I think that it's just kind of a wealth of riches that I think a lot of people are a bit scared of that the Lions might have this year, and having two-time Brownlow medal winner. Two-time Brownlow medal winner, a Norm Smith medal winner, Hugh McCluggage adding in there as well, Jared Berry, all that sort of thing, and now you add possibly the best player in the last couple of years to come into the league, like a midfielder. I mean, it's going to be a good time, and I think that he's going to get a lot of votes for that. He's definitely going to get a nomination, let's just say that. And I think that hopefully his performances throughout the year can propel Brisbane and also propel himself to being a rising star. I definitely like that pick for obvious reasons. My rising star pick might be a little bit of a left field one, but again, Henry Langford for the Melbourne Demons. He was a highly touted prospect out of the VFL, and the rising star one is odd because it's tough to pick. Sometimes you can get guys who feel like they are A1. They're the surefire can't miss prospects, and they just don't quite click at AFL level. I just feel like Henry Langford being a midfielder in a team that might be slightly towards the bottom of the ladder, but he also has a little bit of support around him, so he's not trying to carry the load all by himself. So he's got Clayton Oliver, Petrarca, but I think he'd be a great addition to the Melbourne Demons. And I just think he's going to get a nomination. I think that he's going to perform very well. I feel like he's pretty AFL ready. So I feel like we've both gone for very similar kind of players there, sort of young, short midfielder, AFL ready type prospects from the VFL. So it could be either one of these guys. It could be the
most important ingredient.
One of those guys. Yeah.
The most important ingredient when you're coming from the VFL and at such a young age and coming straight into the AFL is your body physically ready to cope with the intensity and the ferocity of the competition. And I think both these options have the athleticism and the stamina to not only perform at the highest level, but also do it for 4 quarters. And I think both these picks are definitely definitely worth keeping their eye out for throughout the season.
Yeah, I think there's not many years where there's a Harley Reid who's like nearly bigger than everyone in the midfield. Like that just doesn't happen. And I think that these guys are, I think, as AFL ready as you can be at that age with their talent level, but also their physical build and skill level. So excited to see, again, Levi Ashcroft and see how my pick of Henry Langford kind of pans out. We'll see. Now we're going to move a little bit on to some teams who we talked about this a little bit, but we think that are going to be a little bit of a disappointment when it comes to the end of the season. So this might be a team that was really highly talked about and then it's just going to fall off. So do you think, Caleb, is going to be a little bit of a disappointment this year?
Well, I could have picked a few different clubs for this specific category because I think there's going to be quite a few big disappointments across the league. But I've picked GWS as my biggest disappointment for the season. Coming off of last season, they put in so many good performances throughout the home and away season. They came into finals and were touted as being one of the more formidable sides, one to watch out for. And then when they came into the finals, they capitulated in the most outstanding of fashions. And losing to the Brisbane Lions in the semi was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And even though they have a pretty solid team across the park from defense, midfield, and attack, they've obviously got last season's Coleman medalist in their ranks. So they've got plenty of talent across the park. But I predicted in our ladder prediction video that GWS are going to be one of those teams that is good, but not good enough to make it into the 8. And out of the teams that are floating around to sort of buy themselves into the 8, you think of your St Kildas, your Western Bulldogs, your Adelaide Crows. I think out of all those teams that are sort of trying to get themselves in the 8 but won't quite get there, I think GWS will be amongst that crowd, but will be the worst of that selection. And I know this is a bit of a outlandish prediction. I know one of our colleagues was a bit surprised by this pick, but in my opinion, I think the GWS are going to have one of the biggest fall-offs of the season and miss the 8, which will be a huge disappointment for that crowd, even though they have the lowest amount of memberships in the competition.
Lowest amount, but very, very passionate, I would say. They've definitely created a brand identity, which is pretty nice, and I think that GWS will be in for another kind of bumper season.
Up there with the Collingwood song, their song that they get when they win games pisses me off the most. So it is what it is.
I think I saw on Reddit one of those tier lists of top songs, and it was like, let's vote every day to eliminate a song. And they got all the clubs, and GWS and North were the 1 and 2, and North eventually pipped them for the number 1. So everyone kind of really loves the GWS song.
Can I just say, the Carlton theme song is also so overrated in my opinion. It's so depressing. It's like, oh my God.
I just heard all of the Carlton supporters just screaming at you right there. So
yeah, and I don't care. Bring it on.
Yeah,
I genuinely think that, like, as traditional as it is, and as unique as it is in the competition, I just every time I hear it, I'm depressed listening to this. I'm not jazzed at all.
I agree with you. I think that Carlton song's pretty bad. I think the West Coast song's pretty bad as well, especially the new one. I think they put up a poll saying, like, should we bring back the old version? I'm like, neither. Both of them are terrible. So, I mean, if you want to go and listen to it, I'm not going to subject you to me singing one of those songs because
please don't, Harry.
They're both pretty bad. I'm also not a huge fan of, like, the Melbourne Demons one either. Not great. Collingwood one's okay. I mean, clearly the best one is the Lions one, but hey, we're a little bit biased. I feel like those are some best ones. Hawks, not a bad one either.
The Geelong one's also pretty good.
Geelong one's pretty good. So there's a fair few. There's some good ones and some bad ones. I think that everyone has their own opinion about those songs. But yeah, we're digressing very hard here. So GWS was going
what's
to
your
be
disappointment for the season?
Your
Harry?
Disappointment. Well, my disappointment is going to be. Hang on, let me start that again. Where am I? I lost my spot. Here we go. So the team that I think is going to be the biggest disappointment, and I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to have a terrible season. I just think that compared to where everyone's putting them, the Hawthorn Hawks are, I feel, going to disappoint some people. I feel that though the expectations of them this year, I think, is going to be a little bit too high. That some people were putting them at like second betting favourites to win the whole thing, and I'm just thinking that's insane. I think that's a bit of a lure for people to put some money on them at a low amount, and I think that just the Hawthorn the Hawkball thing, the excitement and the kind of passion that they had at the end of the season there, I feel like that will kind of stop toward, I think they have good players. I'm not saying that. I just think that the disappointment might come because people are expecting them to be better than what they really are, and I think that momentum that they rode last year, don't think it's going to quite translate as early to this at the start of the season. So I could be wrong, but I just feel like the disappointment compared to expectation, the Hawks have the highest kind of they have the highest ceiling, but they also have a pretty low floor as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think if they don't make finals footy, then yes, it would be a disappointment. But if they're making the 8, then everyone at Hawthorn will be very happy, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that Hawthorn, the expectations don't quite meet what I think they're actually going to do. So, could be wrong. I know a few people are going to absolutely hate me for that pick, but hey, that's all right. I'm okay with that. So, we'll move on to who you think is going to be your biggest surprise here, Caleb. Who have you picked?
Well, from what I've seen talked about in the media so far in this pre-season, no one is predicting the Essendon Football Club to be making any sort of competitive push towards finals footy. And that's why I believe they're going to be the biggest surprise of this season. Brad Scott has been in the position, and I think he now needs to prove himself at the highest level. And I think there's players in this team, one of which we've talked about previously in Zach Merritt. There's players there and there's talent at his disposal. The team overall is definitely not one of the most eye-catching, let's say, on the eye. But the fact that they were in amongst the top 4 battle for so long of last season proves to me that there's enough in that team to be competitive. It's just they've got to do it for 4 quarters across the whole season. And the fact that they fell off so severely, losing their last 5 out of their 7 games at the end of last season, rightfully put them out of the 8. But this season, I don't know, I have this feeling, this vibe, this intuition about Essendon this season that they're just going to somehow pull the rabbit out of the hat and be the biggest surprise in the AFL this season.
Good to see you're consistent. And I like that you're riding that train of the Essendon Bombers. I feel like every loss that they incur this year, I'm going to be like, Caleb, you see that Essendon lost again? I mean, again, you are going to do that to me every time the Hawks win. Or I know definitely someone who might watch this is going to definitely give me a call every time the Hawks win and be like, where did you put the Hawks again? But anyway, we'll see. Again, pre-season. We're all excited. We're getting jazzed up for the season, and so we're going to have a look at my last pick, which is the surprise that I think is going to make kind of a huge splash this year. And my pick is the North Melbourne Kangaroos. I think that the Kangas have an opportunity here to perhaps pounce on some teams that may fall off a little bit and jump a little bit higher up in the ladder. Say, for example, the Demons. They could jump on the Saints. They could climb over them. Eagles, I think, will be down there, and they could finish in, up in the 15, 14, which is higher than what they've been in the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not necessarily they're going to make finals, but I'm just saying that I think that the surprise might be there where they could take that little extra leap. And I just see that, again, like I spoke about with Nick Larkey, another year of Harry Sheasel, Jai Simpkins, a really good captain, some additions like Luke Parker, Jack Darling, these kind of players coming in. I feel like it's always good to add an experienced player and mix them with the young, exciting players that they already have. So I think the Kangaroos are going to surprise some people this year. What do you think?
Well, the fact that Nick Larkey got 46 goals last season, if he can kick on from there, I think the Kangaroos could definitely push themselves higher up the table and definitely not get the wooden spoon. I have less optimism for the Kangaroos this season, and I'll leave it at that.
I just saw some signs last year that and not just their kind of run at the end of the year. They lost some close games at the start, which kind of shows that you're there or thereabouts, and they just, I feel like, need a little bit of extra finishing polish, a little bit of extra final touches, so to speak. So those are our picks for who we think are going to be the major medal winners, and also some surprises and disappointments. Any final thoughts on that list, Caleb? Anything that might have shocked you a little bit, or you think is completely out of this world?
Well, I obviously disagree with your perspective on the Hawthorn Hawks. I predict that they're going to have a very good season. but nothing out there that's out of the ordinary. I think it's all very fair. Both our lists. I honestly think that it's going to be a very competitive season this year, both individually and for the teams on the ladder. So I'm just very much so looking forward to the season getting started and seeing how it all unfolds.
Yeah, we're only a week and a half away from the first game of the year, which is in opening round, which is the home game for the Brisbane Lions versus the Geelong Cats. So we are very excited about that. And I mean, if you guys think we should do an episode where we kind of preview, I'd like to do a little bit of a preview of who we think is going to do really well in the first round of games. I think that obviously Brisbane are going to come out strong. I'm really excited about that. We have that really exciting game, which is Sydney and Hawthorn in the first round as well. Then you've obviously got Gold Coast and Essendon. And then we also have GWS and Collingwood to finish off the round. So all these bumper games that are interstate, I think that those are going to be some very exciting games. And I think the next time we chat to everyone, we'll probably be chatting about those games and just kind of giving an overall view of what we think is going to happen. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. Any final thoughts, Caleb, before we enter into less than a week? Next time. Ugh. I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
It's all right. Go again.
So, any final thoughts before we wrap up here about where we are at the season right now and your excitement level coming into the start of the AFL season?
Well, with predictions, it's always impossible to get any sort of semblance on how these things are going to unfold. With both of our lists, hopefully none of these players get injured and then ruin this for us. But yeah. I'd love to hear the viewers, your thoughts down in the comments below. Comment your predictions for these various things that we've got down there. And if you're right at the end of the season, make sure you're subscribing, staying involved in the channel and letting us know. But I was going to say, like I said before, I'm very much so excited to see this season get started, and hopefully there's some exciting footy all across the league.
Yes, it's going to be very exciting. We'll have 20 plus, maybe 20 plus weeks of AFL plus finals, and so hopefully we'll all be covering those with a lot of excitement and with a lot of things to chat about. We're getting pretty ready, and I'm kind of excited for some cooler weather as well. It's been a bit hot in Brisbane and I'm pretty over it right now. So footy's here, winter's coming, not to borrow Game of Thrones' slogan, but it's all very exciting. So thank you so much to everybody for watching. Again, please hit subscribe, please like the video. It really does help the channel grow. And again, let us know your comments down below with all your thoughts about the upcoming season, the Coleman Medal, the Rising Star, Brownlow, disappointments, surprises. What are your thoughts? Thank you so much to everybody subscribing. Thank you so much to Caleb for jumping on again. This is the Goalers AFL with Harry and Caleb. Thank you so much to everybody. Have a good day.